It's interesting. I'm already bringing my Kleenex because I know this is going to be a tough one for me today. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. No? All right.
Closer to the mic.
Closer to the mic. There we go. So I'll start off. I want to make just one introduction, and I want to introduce, and she always hates when I do this, but Glori Meldrum is our CEO at Little Warriors, and honestly couldn't do this without her. Her and I have been together. I started Little Warriors 11 years ago, and Lori's been with me almost 9, and is my partner in crime and runs the day-to-day operations of Little Warriors. So just a big hand for my dear friend. I also want to thank Mary Mason for originally 10 years ago bringing Little Warriors into Kiwanis. Okay? I want to thank Richard, and I also want to thank Roy. So the reason that I bring the Kleenex is it's a hard story to tell. But it's a little harder these days, and for those that live in Edmonton, I've been quite private over the last couple of years because I was diagnosed with cancer almost 24 months ago, so I have not been doing a lot of speaking, but I wasn't going to miss this one with you because you guys have been by my side from the very, very beginning. So there's going to be maybe some tears with me today because I'm not, haven't been doing a lot of this. So I just want to be really honest and open with you that it's the last couple of years have been very, very difficult for me. I'm clean now from cancer. Yeah, by the grace of God. Yeah. And so, yes. So thank you for having me. It is truly an honor to be with you guys because I get to see both sides of people that stand up and do something and people that don't. And the Kiwanis Club, you guys, stand up. I love Sam's prayer about the kids, like literally I almost lost it, is that's what you guys do. Is you're taking action every day. You're not just on Facebook complaining about things. You're taking action. And the only way this world gets better is through 2 things: love and action. Complaining gets us nowhere. Love and action. Those are the 2 things. And so I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for believing in me and my dream, because trust me, 10 years ago, most people thought it was nuts. They're still a little crazy in me. You have to be to do this work. But you guys were one of the first groups to give us money and to stand up and say, you know what, we're going to help this lady, right? And so you will never know how much that meant to me, because so many people were like, you know, we don't believe child sexual abuse is a problem. You seem like a really nice lady, but it's not a problem, right? But you guys, from the very beginning, have been by my side. And so that's why it's so important for me to be with you today. So I just wanted to thank you before I kind of give you my story about believing in me, the work that you do, and believing in our kids. So thank you. So a little bit about my story is that I grew up in a little place called Miramichi, New Brunswick, and my mom was a single mom who was also a survivor of child sexual abuse. My mom was very, very poor and had a lot of trauma herself. And so my mom pumped gas and, you know, sold groceries at the grocery store, minimum wage jobs. So we lived at my grandparents' house. And no one knew, except maybe my grandmother, that my grandfather was a serial pedophile. So at 8 years old, I lived in an 1,100 square foot house with 10 other people, and my grandfather hunted me for 2 years. There was nowhere to go. There was nowhere to hide. My grandfather was so calculating, he broke locks on the bathroom door so that I couldn't even go to the bathroom or get a bath, right? I had bladder infections, like I wasn't safe. Because he was so calculating that he would abuse me in that bathroom and be like, if someone walked in, he'd be like, I'm just getting her a face cloth, or I'm just getting her this. Even though the house that was 1,100 square feet was full of a bunch of people. So I lived with that monster for 2 years. He threatened to kill me, he threatened to kill my single mom, my little sister, and he got to do whatever he wanted to me. So when I finally moved out of the house, I told my mom. And my mom grabbed a butcher knife and freaked out, probably not the best response, and went to confront him the next day. He had been in the hospital, and she walked in, and my grandfather said, I never touched your daughter. Yeah, I never touched my daughter. So my mom always believed me, but what was about to happen, nobody expected. My mom called everybody together, all the aunts, all the uncles, because we didn't want any of the other children. And keep in mind, I'm like 10 at this age, right? We didn't want any of the other kids to go through what he had done to me. So we thought, my mom did, by telling everybody, that everybody would keep their children away from this perverted monster. You want to know what actually happened? They sat around a table. They asked me what I wore. They asked me what I did. They asked me how I provoked him. And they completely broke me. So not only did I suffer at his hands, I lost my family. The family made a decision. I mean, they were yelling, screaming, every vulgar word of me you could imagine as a 10-year-old little girl. And one of my aunts finally got me out of there, and I went into my bed and I hyperventilated and went to sleep, and eventually. And from that day forward, they all made the decision that they wouldn't tell my grandmother. But let me tell you, you don't abuse little kids in an 1,100 square foot house, and she doesn't know. She's as guilty as he'll ever be. And so they decided they wouldn't tell her because it might give her a heart attack. True story. So they still made me go to his house, go to supper, sit on his knee. He came to my house for supper. I sat by him at church. There was no escaping him. And his smile that he had got away with it all. He knew they all knew, right? But they cared more about keeping it a secret than they did about a little girl who had never done anything wrong, ever in her entire life. So the reason I named Little Warriors is because by the time I was 12, so as soon as they all knew I had no family, I was the piece of shit, dirt, that no one wanted anything to do with. And I started to raise myself. And by the time I was 12, I can remember sitting on my dad's, because my parents were divorced at 2, sitting on my dad's bathroom floor with my dad's razor, ready to slit both my wrists. And I went in and I was 50-50 if I was coming back out. I had no one. And I'm sure there's people here that have been in a place in their life when there is only darkness and no light. Even when I went to church and I was a little girl, even when he was abusing me, they would say, who wants to come up? And the Holy Spirit is, invite them into your life and God's gonna save you. And like as an 8-year-old little girl, I went up every Sunday. And I just said, God, please make him stop, right? And he didn't. But I never gave up my faith until this day. And so that morning that I was on the bathroom floor was the morning that I became a little warrior. And that's why the name of the organization is called Little Warriors, is that was the day that I basically said, screw all of you, I'm gonna fight. I don't need you, I will fight, I will survive, and I will get out of this small town, and I will make something of myself. So when I was 18, I finally got out of there. I went and got my business degree in Halifax, Nova Scotia, where I met the love of my life that I've been with for 25 years and have 4 beautiful kids with. Always knew that when I got stable, I wanted to do something to help kids like me, because I never even had a therapy session. The cops did. My mother took me to the cops, by the way. Mental health, social services. You want to know what they all said? She's a liar. Do you know that her grandfather is a crosswalk guard? That he helps kids every day? Where do you think these monsters are? They're not working in law firms where there's no children, right? You gotta understand that the majority of sex offenders and most sexual assaults and offenses are against our children, not against adults, statistically. So when you see the Me Too campaign, which I loved, it made me upset because there was no voices of children in that campaign. It was adults. And it's awful for an adult to be sexually assaulted, but a child that's 8 or 6 or 4, it's a whole other story, right? It is a whole other story. They don't have any coping, they don't have any strategies. How do they survive? And so for me, my dream was, to get healthy, which I'm, to be very candid, still working on, especially after the whole cancer debacle. But my dream was to build an organization that would treat kids that had been sexually abused. And so when I first started raising money and telling people this, they're like, you're not even a psychologist, you're not a psychiatrist, you have no medical background. I'm like, but you know what? Like, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm pretty smart, and I can bring the right people together, and here's my plan. And I mean, most people, like I've had so many doors shut, it's like, I can't even count that high. But I stuck to that dream because it wasn't my dream. It was something given to me by God. Because when I tell you, if it wasn't, I would have ran 1,000,000 times. The whole journey has been pushing the biggest boulder that you could ever imagine up a massive hill, right? I open my Facebook in the morning and you know what I read? My daughter is 4 and she's bleeding. My husband raped her. That's what my Facebook's full of. That's what the calls of little warriors are full of, right? Sex offenders aren't people that, slap a kid on the bum. That's not the kids we're seeing at our facility. Make absolute no mistake about that. And Little Warriors, eventually, we raised the money to build the Be Brave Ranch, which is the first treatment center, long-term, trauma-focused treatment center in the world. There is not another Little Warriors Be Brave Ranch anywhere. There's actually nothing like it. Everything that we do at the ranch is researched by the University of Alberta. We have proven that we have reduced post-traumatic stress in children by 50%. We have reduced anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, you name it. And what does that mean? That means that because of our treatment facility, so kids come for a year, and we treat kids from 8 to 16, and it's a 1-year program. And so they come, there's 9 different modalities of therapy, and it's peer-to-peer and kind of group therapy centered, and all kind of best practices around the world. Yoga therapy, play therapy, CBT, equine therapy, art therapy, like you name it. It's an unbelievable program that now is known as a world-class facility, and we've only been open 5.5 years around the world. And so we've been published in medical journals, I think 4, around the world, based on the outcomes. Because often what people don't understand is, yes, it's awful what's being done to these children, but if they don't get the help, you want to know what happens? They end up with debilitating mental health issues like me. I have an anxiety disorder that is as high as a veteran that's been at war, and so is my PTSD. They grow up to be prostitutes, alcoholics, drug addicts, commit suicide, and without the help and getting the kids early, that's where it's headed, is one of those categories. No one escapes child sexual abuse without massive wounds that take a lifetime to heal. And it's interesting with these kids is that, I see Glori gets to spend more time with them than I do, but when I go out, one of the things that they do is they're like, I've seen you on YouTube. And they love me because a lot of them didn't have someone to stand up for them. So they see me as their person that spent their life fighting for them when I didn't even know them. And I tell them, I say, you know what? You think it's just me? It's thousands. It's thousands of people that are rising up and standing up for you, including you guys, right? Raising money, helping with supplies, volunteering. Honey, do you know that tens of thousands of people love you? And they take my hand and they walk me around the ranch and they say, Glori, who gave us the windows? Glori, who gave us the roof? Glori, who gave us the playground? What means the most to them isn't that they're in treatment, because that's probably what you would think, is that they're like, wow, they're at this beautiful facility, and it is. It's 60,000 square feet on 130 acres. It's a beautiful, magical place, blessed by God. You know what they care about? They care about each and every one of you. And when I talk to them, they're like, how do so many people love me? You always talk in your videos about how so many people love me. And I tell them, but you are love, sweetheart. You are love. What was done to you is never right. And people will rise, they are rising, to say that raping and molesting kids is not acceptable. We will change the laws. We will get better services. Right now it's a challenging time. Is to give you an idea, we have 60 beds at the ranch. We operate at 30% capacity because we don't have the money. And it's a 1-year wait list to get into our program. Isn't that crazy? Guess how much government money? Not a friggin' penny. So they're coming out on Monday to tour the ranch. They're coming out, and maybe this government's gonna be different. I pray to God that that's the case. But all of the money that we've raised, and to give you an idea, to treat one kid is $25,000 from 8 to 12 over a 1-year period, and to treat a 13 to 16-year-old girl is about $10,000. So we raise all of that money, and keep in mind, we're not raising money about a topic that is random, that like me, I randomly got cancer, or randomly people get strokes. Like, these are kids that are being hunted by monsters. Nobody wants to admit that dads rape their children, that aunts rape their children. Nobody wants to talk about it. Try raising money for something like that nobody wants to listen to. And you'll understand why I have so much love and appreciation for you and how you supported us, right? Because it's not easy. And so, we treat kids across Canada. We've taken kids from Switzerland, Australia, the US, and we've raised the money to get their travel. If they don't have it, we figure out a way to get it, right? And we pinch 2 pennies together every single day to stay alive, to do the work. That is the honest to God's truth, right? And it's hard. Like I had a day a couple days ago that I just felt so deflated, because, people are busy and they're doing stuff. And, one guy said on Facebook, he's like, I spent $237 on Starbucks this month. I love Starbucks, they're lovely people. I'm like, did you spend that helping other people? Right? Like, life is so busy, we forget the kids that are behind the barbed wire, that don't have food. They're being raped by their family members. We just go about our busy, busy days, right? It's time to stop. I think we're all here so that we leave this place with more love than when we got here and with more legacy. And people underestimate the power. If you ever would have said some broken little girl from Miramichi, New Brunswick was gonna build the first world-class treatment center for kids that have been sexually abused in the world, no one would have ever bought it, right? They wouldn't have. And did I do it alone? Absolutely not. I have an unbelievable staff. You know, it's my, you know, my service to God to do. But you know, I think that the people that are broken actually have more ability to make change because they understand darkness and compassion and loss, all of those pieces, right? And for the future, and what I pray for every day, is I get to build a family program. And so family program costs about $100,000 to develop. And just so you know, everything we develop, we give away to other charities for free. Anything we've learned, you can have it. We'll give it to you. Anything. So when I develop this family program, it'll be for anybody, any families that deal with kids in trauma, that have cancer, domestic violence, whatever it is, we will give it away. And so yesterday, as I mentioned, I was kind of having a really defeated day because I did this big Facebook campaign and I raised like $200 and like 9,000 people had seen my video and I just was like crying. I'm like, $200 and 9,000 people watched it? And it's interesting, and I just, you know, prayed, and I had a friend call me and he's like, Glori, you know what? I'm sending you 20 grand. That happened yesterday. So now I'm short 14. The importance of the family program is that the parents are broken. We've had parents that are drug addicts that are getting in the way of treatment, and we've had to remove the children, so the parents are getting in the way of their care. They don't mean to do it, but they're so broken that they're interfering, and we've had to remove kids from our program. So that's why this family program that will be developed by the U of A and the Little Warriors clinical team is so key, right? The next thing that I want to do after that is fill the ranch. It disgusts me and breaks my little heart and my staff that 30% capacity, really? Every single month I have empty beds. I'm not allowed to treat kids in care because I don't have an agreement with the Alberta government. So 30% capacity. After that, when I get the place full, the next thing I want to do is develop a program for people like me that are adult survivors that you know, try their best, 1 hour counseling. I've been in 1 hour counseling for, oh my gosh, I wouldn't even guess what I spent in money, and still, you know, still struggle with it today, is that I want to build a program for adult men and women that have been sexually abused and help heal them, right? And I want to raise more money for research. Right now we follow our kids for 2 years, but we don't follow them for 5 because we don't have enough money, right? And so I know exactly what needs to be done. I have the best board, the best staff, you know, we've proven what we've done. And you know, I just say to God, like, we've got all the magical ingredients to the cake. The one piece that we don't have is the money to do all the things that we want to do, right? And so it's been interesting, is that's always my prayer, is that God bring me what we need. You know, this isn't my journey. As I mentioned, I would have ran for it about 1 million times because it's been so heavy, is that whatever I need, whatever my kids need, just put the right people in front of us, right? You know, because all of us, and people will say, well, I don't have any money. I'm like, can you volunteer? They're like, yep. Or do you have $2? They're like, yep. Could you write a letter to a politician? Yep. You know, do you have a business that you could donate a silent auction item to? They're like, yep. And I'm like, every single one of us, if we care, all we have to do is act. And the impact, like an iceberg, underneath that, and the kids seeing what you're doing for them, you have no idea. You have no idea what it means to them. So that's a little bit about my journey, and just a couple of stats to highlight. 95% of the time, kids are sexually abused by someone they know, okay? 95% of sex offenders are male, 5% are female. The The average age for girls to be sexually abused is that kind of 10, 12, so right in puberty. The average age for a boy to be sexually abused is 4. 1 in 3 girls will be sexually abused, 1 in 5 boys, and those numbers do not include human trafficking or child pornography. Child sexual abuse, the rape and molestation of our kids, is an epidemic around the world. And until we say, enough is enough, and we all stand up, things won't change, right? And as I said at the beginning of my speech, there's 2 things: love and action. And my line these days is, what can you do? And it doesn't need to be for Little Warriors. Maybe there's something else that's near and dear in your heart. But what is it as a human being? What gifts do you have at your disposal that you can take action to those you want to help? Never, ever, ever underestimate the individual power that you have in your own heart. I never knew mine, right? But never, ever underestimate it, right? So that's a little bit kind of on the number side. And I also wanted to give an opportunity, and Roy said it was okay. Hopefully I'm like tracking okay for time. But does anybody have any questions for me?
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah.
Day-to-day operations, how much does it cost for your operation?
So the other thing, which Lori's really good at, is that 85 cents from every dollar actually goes into the treatment of kids. So our administration cost is unheard of at 15%. We mow our own lawn, we clean when the kids aren't there, and we do our own snow removal. Like, we do anything that we need. We actually go to Facebook and say, we need art supplies. We pay for almost nothing so that we can put every bit of money into the kids. So our budget is about $4.2 million right now, in around there. That's what we raise. But as I mentioned, that gives us about 30% capacity right now. Yeah.
We're gonna have to cut it off.
Okay.
I have a question for you.
Yes, dear.
So how much staff do you have at the ranch itself?
Yep. So I'm also going to stick around if you have questions, because Roy's giving me the. We have about 58 staff. A good chunk of them are clinical staff with different specialties, and the rest are we call them ranas, and they're always with the kids. The reason staff is our biggest cost, and the reason is that you need your child to staff ratio in what we do is very, very large. Right? We have a security team. Think about it. We've been on lockdown before because we've had threats.
Yeah.
Right? And so security and staffing are our major costs. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Okay. Thank you. I'll be around if anybody has any questions. Lots of love. God bless.